Chapter 13. The image of God is not a belief, but an explanation. We started out talking about two types of knowledge, and here is where they converge. The Scriptures make it known that we have been made in the image and the likeness of God. We fail to grasp the enormity of this, even live as though it were not so. But it is so, and we can discover this for ourselves by letting the accumulated world and its hypnotic power recede for just a moment. Salvation history is the story of how God intervened in history and reconciled us with Himself, how God justified us and returned us to our original justice, taking us back to the beginning before we lost sight of the dignity we enjoyed as children of God. When God created us, He endowed us with something not of this world, something eternal that cannot be destroyed. In Jesus, He has forever joined Himself to us and to human nature. With baptism, we are incorporated into His mystical body. Yet even before this, we were given a participation in His very own nature. What is man that Thou art mindful of him, and the Son of man that Thou dost care for him? Yet Thou hast made him little less than God, and dost crown him with glory and honor. Psalms chapter 8, verses 4 and 5. The accumulated world has since made us lose sight of this. Thus we live as beggars and sinners, instead of as who and what we truly are. Beloved, we are God's children now. Wake up! Sin, sickness, disease, even death, like the rest of the aberrations, accumulated in time. They are accidental, not essential to us. When we sin, we offend God, but also our own nature. We grieve God, but also our own spirit, which is willing, while the flesh is weak. Perhaps we cannot stop sinning entirely, but we can transcend the accumulated world and see it for what it is in light of our new discovery. The world and all that we hold precious is not what is most precious. What is most precious we find when we avert our gaze from the world and discover something otherworldly, the simple and holy nature of God with which we are crowned. Chapter 14. Careful not to take it too far. I am not going to take it beyond here, because I would be venturing into New Age theology. We are God. God is all there is. Reincarnation, the world, the self are illusions, etc. I am declaring none of it. Honestly, I think most of these declarations were intended as pointers, as a teaching tool, and were misunderstood by the masses. I am declaring that while we were embracing the world, we lost sight of the kingdom of heaven within. We lost sight of what is eternal, both in heaven above and what God has hidden within our very own being. Jesus spoke in parables, so that the secrets of the kingdom would be revealed to some, while still remaining hidden from others. He didn't beat His listeners over the head with what He knew, but gave subtle hints for those who would seek after it. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and covered up. Then, in his joy, he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls, who, on finding one pearl of great value, went and sold all that he had and bought it. Matthew chapter 13, verses 44 through 46. I have tried despite the biblical warning. Let not many of you become teachers, my brethren, for you know that we who teach shall be judged with greater strictness. James chapter 3, verse 1. Lord knows I'm not perfect, even as a teacher, although I try to balance the paradoxes. Like most, I have often thrown the baby out with the bathwater. I have attached myself to one truth while neglecting another, attached myself to one knowledge while neglecting another. I hope I have not done that here. Sometimes what has been overemphasized needs to be underemphasized, and what has been underemphasized needs to be declared boldly, so it can be heard loud and clear. The difficulty is that it is hard to speak clearly about spiritual matters. It can be like describing pizza to one who has never had pizza, or describing chocolate to one who hasn't even discovered taste buds. Chapter 15. The Heresy of Gnosticism. In the early church, there was a heresy known as Gnosticism. The word comes from the Greek word gnosis, which implies knowledge of spiritual mysteries. At the risk of oversimplifying, let me say that Gnostics held the opinion that matter was evil and spirit was good, that the spirit was trapped in the body and needed to be liberated, and that secret esoteric knowledge was necessary to break on through to the other side. Sound familiar? Yes, these esoteric schools and their offshoots are still around today. They are right about one thing. The spirit may not be trapped, but it is certainly hidden. The accumulated world has successfully obscured it, so much so that it remains concealed from a majority and is largely unknown. Some even possess knowledge of spiritual truths, study them, and think it enough. This is like saying you know what a chocolate soufflé tastes like because you read the recipe in a cookbook, though never having tasted chocolate. There is indeed a spiritual mystery that remains largely undiscovered. For many, the treasure is still hidden in the field, and the pearl of great price has not been found. With most heresies, there is a kernel of truth. The mistake is that this kernel of truth is held up against all others, emphasizing personal spiritual knowledge over orthodox teachings, traditions, and ecclesiastical authority. As one of my college professors used to say, mysticism. It begins with a mist, focuses on I, and ends in schism. But it doesn't have to. When we throw either away, mysticism or orthodoxy, we are impoverished. Chapter 16. Our Calling to be Mystics. There is indeed a knowledge that has remained secret, not known by the masses, just as the real presence of the Eucharist is not known by the masses. It can be explained so another may understand the words, understanding intellectually that Jesus is God, and that he is present, body, blood, soul, and divinity, in the Eucharist. And that's the basic belief. But until that person sits before the tabernacle and experiences the Eucharistic presence firsthand, they don't know what you're talking about. It is the same with discovering the kingdom of heaven within, what I have called the simple and original spiritual truth. If you were born without any arms or legs, one might suggest that mountain climbing may not be the sport for you, because you're not naturally equipped for this activity. However, when it comes to being a mystic, you are equipped. God has given to all a participation in his nature, and those who seek, find. But you have to seek not outwardly, but inwardly. Not moving forward, but backwards. Not seeking God as the Omega, but as the Alpha and origin of all. If you're wondering, a mystic is one who has an abiding awareness and presence of the divine, not because they have read about it, but because they have discovered it. They sought after it, and it was discovered. I happen to be one such person, and I am inviting you to the same discovery. If God didn't want us to benefit from his presence, would he have given us his Eucharistic presence? Similarly, if God didn't want us to be mystics, he wouldn't have given us a share in his nature, though he has hidden it to be found by those who treasure it more than the accumulated world. So, if you are one who, upon hearing these words, truly seeks after it, who discards, in a moment, everything touched by time, then you will know the truth, not intellectually, but experientially, and this truth will make you free. Then you can have back all that you discarded. I promise you. Chapter 17. Freedom is not difficult, but detachment may be. You might be surprised how easy this all is. The barrier is that we think it is difficult, but the only prerequisite is that we detach ourselves from the world, that we leave our accumulated world and travel backward to the source. Think of it like this. What is created and who has created it cannot be seen by you at the same time. They cannot be grasped by you at the same time. They cannot be held by you in the mind or the heart at the same time. Union with God cannot happen until the world is given up. To see the formless, form has to be given up. To see the Spirit, matter has to be given up. Then you may see them both at once. We start with the world, everything that can be known by way of the senses. We leave it and go inward. We encounter thoughts, feelings, and images. We pay them no mind, except to see from where they arise. They are not the treasure we seek. We are seeking their source. For the moment, we leave everything but that, everything that is not the source itself. The following is from St. John of the Cross. The soul that is attached to anything, however much good there may be in it, will not arrive at the liberty of divine union. For whether it be a strong wire rope, or a slender and delicate thread that holds the bird, it matters not, if it really holds fast. For until the cord be broken, the bird cannot fly. Chapter 18. The Purpose of Life. Recently, a friend asked me what I thought the purpose of life was. I told him that I see the purpose of life as being conscious co-creators with God. But what often happens is that while we are passionately co-creating, either we proclaim to be God and take all the credit for ourselves, or we lose sight of what is far more precious than the accumulated world that we are co-creating. We gain the whole world, and in the process, lose sight of the soul or spirit. This perhaps is inevitable, temporarily, but it ought not be. To the extent that we have strayed from God, spiritual blindness results, and as a result of this blindness, we cause more harm than good. When we rediscover the lost truth, when we uncover the source, a taste of the eternal, obscured by the accumulated world but hidden within us, this presence begins to empower and enrich our life. As human beings, we have been given a participation in God's nature. God, who is the source of absolute love, truth, beauty, and goodness, and happens to be the source of all. God continues to encourage us to discover His riches, that which He has hidden within our very own being, as well as those we have yet to receive. Afterword. This book has been an attempt to let all who are interested know that God is very real and very near, not in some anthropomorphic sense, but that He has hidden in your heart evidence of His existence and a participation in His own nature. It is not blasphemy to say that we participate in the divine nature. What is blasphemous is to declare that the taste of the eternal, which we have been given by God, is the entire reality and mystery, and therefore we are ourselves the entire reality and mystery. At the very least, this is a gross exaggeration, but it is also blasphemy. We can, however, discover God as the source and have an abiding awareness and presence of God as the ground of all being, for He is the source of perfect love, truth, goodness, and beauty, and the source of all.